What do you mean you don't have a top 10 list for me to do? I need a top 10 list though. It's the Digimon Tri movies. I always do a top 10 list. Well, if I'm not supposed to do a top 10 list, what the fuck do you want me to do? Salutations, Cinemasochists! I'm Darkest101, and it's that time again! Next Saturday marks the release of Digimon Adventure Tri Part 5 Symbiosis. And as with each of the previous releases of the Digimon Tri movies, I'm doing another video on one of my childhood favourite animes. If you haven't checked out my previous Digimon Tri Top 10 videos, then please do check them out. I love geeking out with you guys about their digital monsters. Today, however, I figured we'd do something a little different. We'd move away from the top 10 a little, you know, which has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't think of a top 10 list this time around. No, today I figured we'd do a review this time. A review of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. This game means so fucking much to me. Like seriously, you have no idea. I mean, do you have any idea how long it was since the Digimon game was released in the West? On a console I fucking cared about? 2007! And I can't even play that one on my fucking PS2, goddammit. And genuinely fuck importing a PS2 from America, because it is genuinely cheaper and easier to import a piano lid 60GB American PS3 at this point. Not even kidding. So obviously we all know how much I love Digimon and how this automatically gives this game some huge bonus points from me. It's also a really cool JRPG style game, which I'm not usually that much of a fan of, but Cyber Sleuth managed to make me appreciate the genre a little better. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that it's Digimon, I don't know. I usually don't go all in for turn-based combat systems like in Pokemon or in this game usually, but I don't know, it might have been because some of the mechanics are brought straight from Digimon lore, or because it's just Digimon related, but I found myself enjoying the combat in this game. You know, it felt like it was an actual tense series of encounters for me this time around. I suppose I can't talk about the battle system and indeed most of the gameplay without first addressing some of the parallels to Pokemon. Most of the combat does rely on type advantages, yes, and you do have to choose between 3 different starter Digimon when you begin your adventure. There are some good spins on the combat system from the classic Pokemon super effective style, however. As far as I know, Pokemon have 1, maybe 2 different type advantages out of a total of 18 that are to be weighed up in combat. Cyber Sleuth cuts that down dramatically to half, revealing 9 different types, but also shakes it up by introducing 4 attributes. Attributes are a separate stat, but they are founded in Digimon lore. This does limit the damage multipliers to a maximum of ×3 and a minimum of ×1/2, but it does make it simpler to remember which Digimon can do how much damage to another Digimon. I also really like how there's a little nod to the Digimon anime. I really like it. I love how this game looks, by the way. It looks really faithful to the Digimon anime style, and the fact that the 3D models are used in dialogue breaks is a nice little touch. They could have easily just used some flat 2D drawings that change with the pace of the conversation, but this way you can see the full reaction take place before you. It's not necessary, but it is a nice bit of effort. Speaking of those dialogue breaks, they tend to go on for a bit, don't they? Like, seriously, this seems to be a major issue when it comes to these PS Vita ports to the PS4. The dialogue in cutscene breaks in between the gameplay are everywhere, and it's worse in the beginning and at the end. I mean, obviously you have to set up the story at the beginning, and the end everything has to be wrapped up. But seriously, the prologue of Cyber Sleuth takes about an hour to finish, and hardly any of that is fighting or exploring the first dungeon. I mean, the dialogue breaks are necessary, but they're primarily used as exposition dumps for the information you need to progress. But the problem with these is that they are huge exposition dumps. The exposition dumps take way too long, and the information the game is trying to get across to you could have been given to the player in a much more engaging fashion. Instead, we end up seeing 2 character models mouth and gesture at each other, and occasionally you may get some Japanese dialogue to remind you there are voice actors in this game. First time playing through this game, not so bad. more on repeat playthroughs, and especially if you're doing New Game Plus, boy. Also, something I found unusual about the game was the fact that they'll sometimes offer a choice of dialogue between you, the player. Nothing too weird about that, after all. This is supposed to be you're playing as. However, something that really made me scratch my head was that when investigating, you'll ask NPCs questions to further the investigation. You are, after all, a cyber sleuth. But in a handful of these questions, you end up literally asking questions you already know the answer to. And I don't mean in the sense that you worked out the twist before the character did, but in the sense that the game spoon-fed you the information 2 seconds prior. Like, what the fuck? Again, something of an issue I found with these PSP, PS Vita ports. Drilling random bits of information into your head 1,000 different fucking ways, 10 minutes after you've already heard it. Once you get into the gameplay proper though, it's not half bad. Half the game takes place in a digital space called Eden, a sort of cyberspace worldwide social network. And the other half takes place in modern day Tokyo. The real world is just you running around talking to people and searching for clues, so there's not really a whole lot to do in the real world, but it is important as not everything or everyone is on Eden, but there is a fair bit of detective work going on with it. In Eden, however, you get access to a whole bunch of new cyber abilities, what with you now being a cyber sleuth, such as remote hacking, firewall decryption, that kind of thing. It's pretty much automatic, sure, but it is still necessary. And you'll always be able to tell when you're in a dungeon because that's when your Digimon show up. It's a nice little touch to have your Digimon stomping around after you whenever you need them. It's just a really cute little detail I can't help myself loving, especially the fact that each different Digimon has their own unique walk cycle. Heck, it's even adorable when you're being sought by Rustaranemon, Diaboromon, and fucking Machinedramon. It's fucking adorable. The game also had a pretty great soundtrack, all things considered. I mean, it has not got a patch in games like Tron Evolution or Undertale, but the music does set the tone and doesn't overpower the scenes they're used for. They're mostly atmospheric tonal pieces, although I will admit, whenever their Cyber Sleuth main theme kicks up, I do jam out a little. And for a game called Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, the story is perhaps one of the greatest things this game has going for it. I mean, genuinely, I felt like I was playing through an entire season of a new Digimon anime. There were so many different plot lines, subplots in the form of side quests, and ideas that run all the way throughout the narrative. It is so well crafted. There's a very cool little detail where the entrance to the most common and repeatedly visited dungeon in the game is this abandoned, rundown kids' play park. And at the end of the first floor of this dungeon is where you'd originally enter the area from before it became abandoned. A small detail you'd surely forget about as you play through the game, but hours later you come back to the beta version of the original Eden and enter the park as it was in its prime, and you go through the dungeon the way you were supposed to. It's such a cool, amazing little scene that really shows the strength of the narrative structure with this game. Naturally, with a story this densely packed with this many characters and different through lines and plot lines all throughout the narrative, it is going to be really difficult to unpack the narrative in a way that you guys can digest in a review format without butchering it completely. It's like when I reviewed Mass Effect, there's so much lore and backstory and things that have found out throughout the narrative that make this world bigger and better than what it was when you initially started, that makes it kind of impossible to unpack in a review. The main plot of the game revolves around the appearance of these things referred to by many as Eaters, a weird digital construct that suddenly appeared one day in Eden that consumed the data of Eden avatars and leave the users in a comatose state in the real world. At the same time, the less maintained and forgotten areas of Eden are slowly but surely being swarmed and overrun with Digimon who are causing their own slew of problems for the system. And behind it all, the Kamishiro organization, the organization responsible for Eden, remains silent. And somehow it is up to you, the eponymous Cyber Sleuth, to figure out what Kamishiro is hiding, what the Digimon are doing in Eden, and how do you stop the Eaters. So, you know, no pressure or anything. Suffice to say, the title of Cyber Sleuth is not just in reference to the fact that you are a sleuth who works in cyberspace. Digimon Cyber Sleuth is a great little JRPG style that's not too heavy on complicated battle strategies and in seriously in-depth skill trees and all that. While story-heavy dialogue scenes are ponderous to sit through on repeat playthroughs, they are acted well enough that the emotions come through to keep you interested in the whole story, which there is a lot of, by the way. Plus there are some freaking awesome scenes that just make this game worth the price of admission alone. Although, if you are a completionist, I feel I must warn you that the Demon Lords are a pain in the dick. This is all. Anyway, while Cyber Sleuth may be slow to start, it's easy to pick up, easy to get into, and easy to find yourself finishing all the way through to the end. And it's easy to see why Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth gets a dart rating of 83. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying Digimon Adventure Tri as much as I am. Hope you guys enjoyed today's review. If you will excuse me, there is a certain time of year I must prepare for. But as always, I've been Darkest101. You have been watching Darkest101 Reviews. Thanks for watching. Happy fucking nightmares.